Justin Salgado is in infrastructure operations for Tucson Electric. He's the supervisor of infrastructure operations. He has been with Tucson Electric for 6 years, and Justin previously worked as a technical support engineer for the city of Tucson and for Pima County. Graduated with a degree in management information systems from the University of Arizona. Justin lives in Tucson, where he's coming to us live from today, and he's an avid outdoorsman. Justin, thanks so much for taking time with us today. We appreciate you joining us and telling your story.
Welcome. Now, let me see if I can get this to work here.
There we go.
Alrighty.
Looks great.
All right. So, hi, welcome everybody. I wanted to talk about our TEP's Tufin journey, Tucson Electric Power, and really talk about the project we embarked on to really improve our firewall process. So we had some challenges that we had to overcome, which was the reason why we started the project. We were creating a new team, the infrastructure operations team, which was a tier 2 team. It was a team that I was going to be the supervisor of. So we weren't going to have level 3 engineers. Nobody on the team was going to have advanced networking skills or firewall skills. So we had to really figure out how we could bring a tool in, how we could create standards, and how we could really make it easier for somebody to learn this stuff and do it, without creating a lot of mistakes. Also, most of our rules were taking up to 2 weeks to complete. So we really had to turn them around a lot quicker. Also, we wanted to talk about all firewall rules had to be approved. So we really wanted to look at, why do they all have to be approved? Why can't we have some that are high risk, meaning maybe they traverse many zones, maybe they're some of our critical applications on critical firewalls, but we also have a lot of low risk, meaning, we build a server that needs to talk to SSEM or SolarWinds or some of our other tools. Why do those have to be approved? Why can't they just be peer reviewed? So we really wanted to look at those two things, and we thought that that could help us kind of speed up the process. We also didn't have a standard tool for creating firewall rules. We used ASDM, some command line, and some other tools that we have to create them. So there wasn't consistency. People had to learn these tools, and it just wasn't advantageous for a new team. We have some firewall rules that crossed many firewalls. Strong learning curve, long execution time. You had to mock the rule up and then deploy it manually to several firewalls. It took time, and we had no assurance process and no auditing. So we were really trusting the engineers to do it right, and we really wanted a way for security operations to be able to audit that process if needed. So some of our critical success factors, I kind of broke them up in a few categories. Software related, we wanted the ability to identify redundant and verbose rule sets. We wanted the ability to do A and B traffic analysis and determine what's preventing traffic. So that was a big one for us. We have some other tools that we can use, but it was really, we really wanted to get one tool for the entire team and one tool to be able to determine if something's being blocked by a firewall rule. So we use this on a daily basis. People come to us all the time. My app doesn't work. Is it a firewall rule that's causing it? And we're able to log into a secure track and determine what's going on. Tool needs to be able to work on all, obviously, next-gen firewall brands. That was important to us. Improve firewall troubleshooting capabilities. Audit trail of firewall rule changes. Kind of talked about that a minute ago. And then standards was a big thing for us. We wanted to develop rules based around security standards. It's going to be imperative for a new team to understand that when they're creating rules, they need to meet a certain standard. And also with the high and low risk rules, we needed definitions around it. What determined what a high risk rule was? What determined what a low risk rule was? We really wanted to take the guesswork out of all this. And that it overlapped there, developed standards to guide process and roles. We also developed roles around the teams that we had doing firewall rules. So the infrastructure operations team was now going to do a majority of the rules. Our network and telephony services team, they were still going to do rules on some of our critical firewalls. So we wanted to, make sure that we've got policies around which firewalls infrastructure operations pushes rules to and which ones network and telephony services pushes rules too. And then we had our security operations team. They were doing the after the fact review. So they were going to do the assurance. In security engineering, they're our team that creates standards and ensures that everybody understands them and works with everybody to create them. Workflows and processes created. We really wanted to build an SLA into everything. We didn't have that before. So people would submit a firewall rule and really didn't know when it was going to be completed. We didn't have priorities based on those rules. If it was a P1, someone would just tell you, hey, that's a P1. It had no criteria. Maybe they just wanted to bump their ticket up. Ones that we knew were for test or dev systems. Sometimes they may not get done for a month or two, right? Just depending on the workload of another team. The network team was the one who was doing firewall rules before us, and they were just overworked. It wasn't anything bad on their part. Workflow definition will be crafted with efficiency and accuracy as guiding parameters. So we really wanted to define a workflow, and we did that with ServiceNow. From the time that a user requests a rule, to the time it's approved, to the time it's in secure change to my team, to the time they execute and to the time they close it. We wanted to make sure that we had a really defined process. And we combined that with doing a lean assessment. So we really went through a whole lean exercise, and we really stripped out a lot of the waste. And creating the high risk versus low risk, that was actually one of the biggest things that came out of the lean process, and also creating an SLA. It allowed us to really determine those definitions. If you're going to have a priority 1, maybe that's 1 to 2 day turnaround, priority 2, 3 to 4, and so on and so forth. We really wanted to define that. And then we wanted firewall rule cleanup, and we were able to use Tufin for that and as part of the project. So who was involved? I just put this in here as part of our implementation, just to kind of show you it was a pretty big endeavor. If you're going to embark on something like this, you should have multiple teams. We brought in our enterprise security team that's comprised of security operations and our security engineering team, our network engineering team, then the infrastructure operations team, which is the team that I'm part of. And then we had Tufin Professional Services help us out with the implementation and the ServiceNow integration. Our Tufin configuration, what we really liked and kind of sold us on some of the ideas they were presenting to us was that we were able to kind of tailor to our needs, meaning some firewalls configured for read-only and others for full access. So we talked to a lot of customers, and we were some of the only ones at the time, in Arizona at least, that were wanting to push a firewall rule all the way through. Some were using it just for tracking, some were using it to mock up the rule. We wanted to push it to some firewall, but not others, meaning we have some that are critical, we have some that are non-critical. So for critical firewalls, it's less change. Change doesn't happen often. There can be some catastrophic events if a firewall rule is put in incorrectly. So for those, we wanted it Tufin just to be able to mock the rule up and secure change, and then someone would manually push the rule out based on whatever brand firewall we're using. It would use its local tool. But for read-only, for being able to push it out, that's the majority of our firewalls, and that's what the infrastructure operations team would do. So, it's a majority of their rules. They're getting a ton a day. They're able to, Tufin mocks up the rule. They can manually or automatically push it out, and the process is just quick and easy. ServiceNow integration, I won't go into it as much because Britt's going to go into it a little bit in one of his breakouts. But it was big for us. We're a big ServiceNow shop, and we wanted our requesters to be able to use a ServiceNow form. We wanted that form to be able to obviously take in the requirements, but then also automatically push it for approvals, then automatically push the ticket to us in Tufin. And then once Tufin is done pushing the rule, we wanted it to close the ticket in Tufin and in ServiceNow. And we did all that, for obvious reasons, for tracking. And also on our form, I should have taken a picture and I apologize, but we can put stuff in there, obviously the ports, the services, and we can lock it all down so it ingests it correctly in Tufin. It's got our priorities in there, and each priority has our definition of our SLA for it. You know, priority 1 is 1 to 2 days. And so it's a really nice form, keeps everything automated. Everybody can follow they can track their progress. They know who on my team has the ticket. And sometimes they have to reach back out to them. Oh, I put the wrong port in and stuff like that. Just makes it easier, takes the guesswork out.
Hey, Justin.
Yes.
Hey, Justin, it's Jeff. Just before you jump off implementation, a question came in. You had mentioned earlier about firewall rule cleanup. And the question was, how good was it? Maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit more. It was a question that came in from the audience.
Yeah, so that was a good question. That was kind of a general statement, meaning that we had it as part of the project, but we do use Tufin to clean up our firewall rules. And what we did was we built in a process in our server decommission. So when a server is decommissioned, we get a task to go in, and then we use Tufin to search for any rules based on that host name, and then we're able to remove those rules. So I would say in that context, it's fairly easy, and we use it almost, I wouldn't say every day. We're not removing servers every day, but we use it all the time. And also we use it to look for, we embarked on a big cleanup as we were moving to next gen firewalls, and we used it to look for hit counts and to really lock down, or really discover rather, which rules were being used and not used. So we used it in that context as well. And then we were able to take the rules that had 0 hit counts and really, analyze them. Hey, are they never being used, or are they used once a year for a certain process? So I hope I answered that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So efficiencies gained was something I was most proud of in the project. With math, you come out with a half there, but let's round it up. 13 firewall tickets a week my team was getting. That's 50 a month, 650 a year. So without Tufin, and these are legitimate numbers. I didn't just make this stuff up because I'm on a Tufin call. Without Tufin, all the stuff I was talking about, pushing across multiple firewalls, having to mock up the rule and then do that, obviously, the learning curve, no standards to follow, was taking, almost 2 weeks. We've cut that down to 1 to 5 days. Our highest SLA has a 5-day turnaround on a priority 4. So that tells you how much confidence I have that my team can turn them around. The previous effort, taking 2 to 4 hours per rule, right, on average, and now it's 30 minutes or less, 30 minutes to an hour rather. So that's a pretty significant improvement there. We saved a ton of hours, as you can see, and basically equated to 975 to 1,950 hours of labor each year. And for us, that equaled about an FTE. And that was actually important for my management to see as we were building a team and asking for employees. So that was pretty cool. A win-win. Our customers are happy about the quick turnaround on their requests. This is just so happened, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, we got another compliment from a user in one of our business areas, and he hadn't submitted a rule in a long time. He's in one of those critical firewall areas, and they don't make changes that often. So this is the first one he had done in a while, and he sent an email saying how the process was super easy. He loved the form. He was able to figure out who had the ticket. He had made some mistakes. We were able to easily fix those mistakes and push the rule out correctly. He was amazed at the turnaround. He brought up some of the stuff in the past that he had experienced, and he was just really gracious about what we had done. Quick learning curve. As I mentioned, the operations team's tier 2. Nobody on the team came to my team with any type of firewall experience and very little networking. My team has experience in all facets of IT, so networking, servers, application support, all that type of stuff. And nobody's really came as a specialist on something. So they're all able to use Tufin to mock up the rule. And something I forgot to say on the low risk that's helped out is our low risk rules have a peer review, right? So we don't just allow low risk rules through. We've built in a peer review, so somebody else on the team verifies that rule is correct. And then also those rules, every month we send a report to our security operations team with all the low risk rules that we did. And they're able to spot check those, looking for, every type of stuff, malicious stuff, multiple mistakes, things of that nature.
Hey, Justin,
Yeah.
just on the security audit piece, because a question came through on that. The question was, do you use Tufin in any form of compliance? Sounds like that's maybe what you're doing a little bit there.
Yeah, that was our goal, and I actually have it down in one of the next slides. I think the USPs would have helped us a little bit with some of that stuff. But compliance, we didn't make, I can't speak today. We didn't get to it. That was one of our goals. We just kind of ran out of time. As a electric company, we have certain regulations that are mandated by the government. And so we really wanted it to be able to monitor some of that stuff for compliance. But we kind of took compliance and made it our own type of compliance. We're not using a lot of the compliance tools in Tufin, if that answers the questions. It's on our roadmap. In fact, I talk to Britt about it all the time. We're going to get back to it. We just, it was a crazy year. And then obviously this year's been thrown into flux with everything that's going on. But it looks good. And especially if you're in the electric industry or you have regulations, there's definitely some reports you can run. And I think it's a good tool. I had it there, security audits. But we do use security audits as reports. We create manual reports, and that's how we do our compliance and send them to our security team. And troubleshooting.
Sorry, Justin, there was a question about ServiceNow as well, about your integration, but in the chat window, Britt is actually answering those questions while you're presenting. So thanks, Britt, for jumping in and doing that.
Yeah, Britt's pretty good at typing quickly and texting, so he'll get that.
He's on it. That's great.
Thanks,
Justin. Go ahead.
Troubleshooting made easy was the last one. Like I said, my team gets a lot of, hey, the firewall is blocking this, as any team would get. We're able to go in, figure it out, and we have a pretty complex network. So having a tool and nice graphical interface has made life easy. What do we do anything different? This isn't a plug for Tufin, but I would buy a lab environment. I think at the time, we were under a time crunch and a lot of new things were happening and we didn't buy it. And, when you have multiple firewall vendors in your environment and stuff like that, you kind of need a test environment, especially with the ServiceNow integration and us being such a big ServiceNow shop. We're upgrading ServiceNow all the time. We have a pretty intense integration with ServiceNow, and so we need to be able to test in a lab environment. It was actually scheduled for this year, but with things coming home, it's just a little bit delayed. And then dedicate more time to developing those USPs. I think that it was on our roadmap. We had some changeover in the security engineering team at the time, and it just didn't get done. But once again, that's on our plan to get these done. We have a base model that we're using, but we just didn't get it fully vetted out, which is something I want to get done. And that was it. Thank you. You can reach out to me. There's my email address if you have any questions afterwards. Or if you're in Britt's breakout session, I'm sure he'll give you his. He's obviously more of the technical piece of our project and was a big part of making this successful. So that's all I had, unless there's any other questions.
Justin, that was terrific. Thank you. A couple of things that came through. So someone was asking if they could see the integration. So happy to take that as an action item. We can certainly show you a demonstration of Tufin with the integration with ServiceNow. So Alec Brailsford, who's our head of sales engineering, is on the phone, can take a note on that, and we can certainly follow up with you on it. One of the questions that came through was, did you evaluate any other solutions?
We did. We evaluated two other ones. We evaluated, Britt, if you're on there, help me out. What was the name of the other two? We obviously investigated Cisco's new ADSM at the time. And then they were going to move to Firepower, obviously. But the other one was what's your other competitor?
Firemon.
Yeah, we looked. And we talked to two of our other electric companies. We don't own them, but they're in Arizona as well. And we talked to them as customer references. And they were using Tufin. and just kind of sold us on it. And what sold us on it was the amount of, well, the integration with ServiceNow was huge. We couldn't have got it without, I wouldn't have purchased it without that integration. And then obviously the ability to have some firewalls and read only, some not. The role-based access we have, the secure track versus secure change. Some of the other tools just didn't have that. And they were decent tools. I mean, I'm not, I don't have, Tufin just won out based on our requirements. They met them and they did a better job at it.
Great. There was one other question that came through, Justin. It was about your environment. Do you have virtual firewalls? And if yes, how was the integration with Tufin?
I don't believe we do have virtual ones, but every firewall we have in our environment, we have integrated with Tufin. And we have, I'm not going to go into all the different brands, but we have multiple vendors that we use, all the big players out there.
Great. And Britt's answering some questions kind of offline here, guys, about some integration questions that people had. So feel free to keep the questions coming. Justin's been good enough to share his contact information here on the screen. So I'm sure he's happy, as he just offered, to answer any other questions as they come in. But we continue to keep using the chat screen if we need to. Justin, thanks so much for sharing your story. We really appreciate it.
Tufin